What's up, guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome back to Audio Addiction, where you can find the latest album reviews, you can find our band interviews, and you can find live video of the concerts that we get. We just uploaded a show thoughts that we haven't done in a really long time, but I always love doing those. I love kind of getting your ideas on shows and things of that nature. This one was a local show, so unfortunately, you guys can't, get the chance to see that, obviously, because it's local to me. But I will be doing more of those in the future. And this week, I'm going to a ton of shows, locals, big tours, just in general. So this week, at least. So I'm really excited for that. We have an awesome interview with, obviously, who you can tell who I'm doing the album review on. We're doing an interview with them as well, and that's going out tomorrow, Monday, if this is uploaded tonight. If not, it'll probably be not long after this video. So definitely check that out if you get the chance. They got a chance to talk with me about their new record and just their plans and, touring updates for them touring with Prevail and Wage War, which is amazing. So congrats to you guys. I know I've said it a million times and I said it a lot in the interview, but definitely go check these guys out if you haven't. If you enjoy what we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit that like button as well. And I'd like to thank them for sending me the album early. I love checking out bands, especially this band. They're like close friends of mine now. So, I obviously had to do it. So, without further ado, tonight we're going to be talking about Villain of the Story's new record, Wrapped in Vines, Covered in Thorns. So, as you know, if you've been with the channel for a long time, I found out about them probably about a couple months, before last year, probably in like April, maybe March, maybe around the same time, actually. But I was still kind of new, still kind of fresh at doing this, and I was like, when I found this band, I was really stoked on them. I really enjoyed their sound. Their EP was really awesome and stuff like that. It was recorded with Johnny Frank of Attack Attack, and Bill Murray, if you haven't checked that out. But I was really stoked on them because it just reminded me of those classic sort of metalcore roots back, when I was listening. I mean, I still listen to a lot of metalcore, of course, and a lot of metal in general, but it takes me back to kind of like Memphis Mayflowers, The Hollow, like old Devil Wears Prada, older sort of bands that have been around for a long time that obviously are still doing stuff, but just to me, that was kind of quintessential classic, like post-hardcore, metalcore, all that sort of stuff. That's what I was listening to. So this album, their last EP just brought me back to that. So when they said that they were working on a new record, I obviously had to give it an album review, without a doubt, and I was obviously grateful enough to get it a little bit early. So I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it as I do usually. So let's get into the first track, which is GHC. This was I believe the last and most recent single that they've released so far, but this one starts off with a bang. I really like this sort of ambient, just solo guitar intro. I definitely like when the rest of the instrumentation comes in. I would say that this is up there in terms of the heavier tracks off the record. When we did an interview, which you'll check out soon, hopefully, they said there was a lot of variety and a lot of just mix of heavy. There were some sing-along parts and stuff like that, and I totally get that after listening to it in the car for a little bit, and like while I'm going to work and just doing errands and things. I totally got that vibe, especially off this first track. It's definitely on the heavier side if you haven't already listened to it already. I definitely like Christian's sort of raw, aggressive sort of approach to his screams. I know he has that high register scream, which is, again, reminiscent of a lot of older metalcore bands that I love. Definitely brought me back for sure. And I also like the layered screams that are added in as well. I feel like it adds a lot of depth to the track and a lot of depth vocally as well, because then you can kind of accent the higher elements with some of the lower screams and vice versa. So I really enjoyed that. Logan's cleans, I would say, without a doubt, in my opinion, are one of the best in the scene for a while. I just love his lower register. I love that he's got this kind of grit to his voice. And I like that just the way he carries his voice and how clean it sounds, and just I know obviously it's done in the studio so it sounds much better, but I got to check them out live, and I would say that he's definitely sounds very close to, if not the same to, how it's put out, especially Dragon Sickness, the next track. I got to hear that a little early while they played that on tour. I know that was one of the singles that they released as well, but you can definitely tell that they carry that same sort of professionalism with the album and also the tracks as well. I also like the added layers, not vocal layers, but just like ambience, like the synths, the sort of like interesting sort of stuff that makes the track have a little bit more depth, a little bit more ambience to it. I really enjoyed that. I also love that Christian and Logan had this nice balance with each other. I know they're step brothers, but I like the balance between the two. I think they feed off of each other very well, and you can tell that stage wise as well as you can tell that musically as well. I feel like they just kind of match very well together, and I think it's a great way to start off this record. GHC was definitely one of my favorites that they've released so far. So we'll move it on to track number 2, which is Dragon Sickness. Like I mentioned, I believe it was the first single that they released prior to the album, but they did mention that it was going to be on the record. So obviously a lot of people listen to this beforehand. Is probably one of the first tracks that they listened to outside of maybe the EP, or maybe they didn't even listen to the EP and they listened to this track. But I think it kind of gives a misrepresentation of what they sound like. Not I wouldn't say it's too far off. I still think it's very much in that metalcore phase, but I also feel like it plays on more of the like. I feel like it almost pays homage to a lot of the like electronic core bands, like again like Devil Wears Prada, Attack, those sorts of bands. I feel like that sort of electronic sort of intro part definitely kind of pays tribute to them. I love when the guitars and the drums kick in, no pun intended. I know I made a drum joke. But yeah, definitely love when all the instrumentation comes in. I feel like it feels very collected. Obviously, this is probably one of the older tracks that they've released. And again, I feel like it doesn't represent them very well. But I think overall, I think it's a really solid track. And I like the riffing on this track more specifically. Mike, I think he did an awesome job. I think it's kind of very quintessential metalcore. I know I keep mentioning it, but it feels very, I guess, very familiar, very homey sort of feeling like that. I feel like it is just like what you would expect from a metalcore track, like in general, just how the flow is, how everything kind of fits well together in that sort of that era of music. But really enjoyed that. I also enjoy the group vocals in the second part of the chorus, and the breakdown at the end just kind of solidifies the deal. I think they really did an awesome job on this one. I wouldn't necessarily say it's one of my favorite tracks. Even just being the single, I didn't really enjoy it too much. So I would say this one's probably my least favorite, though I did see it live, and I think it kind of created that spark for me. So I mean, it's not the worst track, but I definitely think there are a lot of better tracks off this record. So we'll move on to track number 3, which is A Message for Mr. Rascal. I think when I was listening to the clips, by the way, if you haven't checked those out, they posted little clips of each one of their tracks off this album. So definitely go give those a spin if you're getting into the mood for that. But for me, I felt like this track had a lot of potential to it. It felt very Memphis Mayfire-esque, especially maybe like in between like Challenger and The Hollow. I feel like it feels very much like that. I really like Nick's intro drum solo kind of a thing. I feel like this album in particular, I feel like it represents the whole band very well. There are tracks where I feel like Nick kind of stands out more. There are tracks where Sean, their bass player, sticks out more. There's tracks where Mike kind of takes the lead in terms of guitars and stuff like that. And then obviously the vocalists kind of carry it throughout. While there are some songs that favor maybe Christian more or favor Logan more. I think in general, I feel like they all play a really intricate role in how their album sounds and how it's collected. I think it's really cool that, again, each member kind of gets their own sort of quote unquote spotlight in the track. But getting back to A Message for Mr. Rascal, again, I really like Nick's sort of drum solo intro. Again, feels very Memphis Mayfire-esque. I feel like if you are a Memphis Mayfire fan, I definitely feel like this could be right up your alley. It feels very fast paced in your, and just from the beginning, I think they just, it goes from 0 to 100 real fast. And I love the layered screams. I love when bands do that. I think, again, it shows a lot of depth, and I know I've been mentioning kind of the same points, but I feel like that's something to point out. And then I also, like I mentioned, I feel like the drums on this track in particular are more of the focal point of the whole song in general. So we'll move it on to track number 4, which is Promise Me. I think this was the 3rd single that they released. And I would definitely say this one's by far my favorite out of the singles. I think Powerless is probably a very, very, very close second, but Promise Me just has this sort of, again, keeping with the last track, A Message for Mr. Rascal, it feels very fast paced. It feels very much like a Memphis Mayfire track as well. Obviously, you can tell that they are a big influence on them, and just, songwriting wise, as well as just riffing guitar wise, instrumentally, it feels very Memphis Mayfire-esque. I'm liking the additional sort of layers in this track. I feel like it kind of adds, again, depth to the whole track, and in general just adds to either the vocal performance or just instrumentation as well. I really enjoyed the breakdown on this one as well. I think this one, it kind of hits hard as per, most breakdowns, but I definitely feel like they placed it very well in this track. I think song structurally wise, it's got great melody, it's got great vibes to it. Definitely, this one has a lot of emotion to it, at least in my opinion, and that's what I got. It feels like a very emotional track. Not like a sad emotional track, kind of, not more of like a Powerless, but I feel like, again, it has a lot of emotion to it, especially at the end when it has that sort of soft ambient outro. I feel like, again, those emotions kind of build up and stuff like that. So that's why, to me, it's one of my favorite singles, and definitely one of my favorite tracks off the record. So we'll move on to track number 5, which is Never Coming Back. I would definitely say, without a doubt, this track feels very much like a black sheep of the album. I always love when bands kind of add this sort of, I guess, different flair and different experimentations on a track. I feel like, again, it shows a lot of diversity. It also shows a lot of skill that they're able to do something that necessarily doesn't fit for them. I would say this one, again, it has definitely has a different feel to it from the past couple tracks, like Dragon Sickness, Promise Me, GHC. I definitely feel like it has a different flavor to it. I feel like this one is more or less a sing-along, sort of get get the crowd going. I can see this one being a great track to play on their tour. I don't know if they have it on this list, so maybe if somebody knows, I know, once you catch them out on that tour, maybe we'll find out. But I definitely feel like this one has more of a hard rock feel to it. Very reminiscent of like A Day to Remember on their last record. I feel like it takes a more hard rock approach to this track. You can definitely tell the grit on this one from Logan. He just has this sort of, I wouldn't even say, it's just got this real passion to it, which I enjoy. I love when bands kind of put all of their energy, all of their force into it. I would have to say that this track kind of is a grower to me. After the first listen, I was just like, this seems a little bit odd to me. And then after they were kind of elating it to me in the interview, I feel like this fits very well. Like, while it might be a black sheep of the record, I feel like it fits. I feel like it fits them very well. I feel like they can pull this off very well. And then I also enjoy that sort of yell to scream part that Logan does before the chorus. I really enjoy that. I know he does a lot of the backup screams live, so I don't know if he did a lot of the extra layering in the studio, but I really enjoyed that. I thought that was good. And again, when I saw him live, I liked the balance of the two because Logan can really scream. So that was awesome. I think this one has a really catchy chorus. It reminds me of, like, ironically enough, I Prevail, in the sort of overarching high melodies. It gets really happy. It's got this really like sort of upbeat sort of like groove to it. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a happy track, but I think it does have some happier vibes to it. I like that Sean kind of takes the spotlight on this one, holding it down on the bass, especially towards the bridge parts. I feel like he comes out a little bit more. I really enjoy that, and I also feel like the group vocals, as per usual, are a nice touch to any sort of track. I like when they do that. I think it kind of incorporates all the members, and as well as it kind of adds this sort of ambience, this sort of extra-ness to it that I really enjoy. So we'll move it on to track number 6, which is This Apocalypse. I would definitely say they're getting back into the sort of heavier kind of tracks, but I really like this guitar riff at the beginning that Mike wrote. I definitely think it's got this sort of bounce to it. I will say it was kind of a little bit of a letdown. I thought there was going to be like this cool sort of breakdown part, but I think they kind of switched it up and did a different thing, which is awesome too as well. I think it translated well. I think the first time when I listened to it, I was like, this seems a little bit odd, but after a few listens, I really got into it after that. And then I like that they went sort of the clean route. I was expecting maybe some screams from Christian on the first verse, but I like that it was more Logan, I would say. I think that balances very well. I think it's something different. I like that they didn't kind of go with the what you would assume happens scenario. So I like that, and I also like that Christian kind of does some backup vocal parts, like screams in the back. I think that's kind of cool and adds this sort of like weird like a layering effect to it, which is awesome. I think in verse 2 Christian just goes in. I think this track I would say is more of a Christian track. I think that again they have this nice balance where they play off of each other, like any two good frontmen. I think they pair very well together, and this obviously shows that. Again, like I mentioned, it's very well constructed. I think it has a great melody. I think in parts it definitely hits hard, and at the other parts, I think you really get a lot of great melodies that I really enjoyed. I think it definitely has some new metal influence, especially at that beginning intro sort of riff, guitar riff. Feels very new metal-esque. So I like that they're taking in again another sort of element that they're typically not too associated with and adding that in. And then I like the sort of ambient bridge parts. It reminds me a lot of the Word Alive's most recent record, Dark Matter. So I really enjoyed that as well. So we'll move on to track number 7, which is Powerless. I believe this was the second single that they released. I really like the intro guitar riff. Like I've said in multiple album reviews, guitar riffs, just guitar parts, are something that I gravitate towards when I listen to the album firsthand. That's just my comfort zone and what I go to. I like that this track is more softer. I know it still has some heavy elements to it, but I think this one shows a little bit more, I guess, like I said, motion. It shows a lot more just grit, like just emotional grit to it. It just feels very invested. That's the word. I was trying to figure out the word for it, but it feels very invested. It feels like this one they put a lot of heart into, and you can definitely tell in this track. If you haven't listened to Powerless already, I highly recommend checking that one out. I really love the melody in this chorus. Probably my favorite. It's definitely gonna get stuck in your head. I can probably count. I can't even count how many times that I have got this melody stuck in my head at work, and I'm like humming it or whatever. And so that if that can give you a good representation of the track or just melodies in general, then that will definitely get you those sort of vibes, and just you'll remember those parts. So really enjoyed that. I like so far that the record is very diverse, like I mentioned earlier. It has some heavy tracks, it has some softer tracks, it has whatever. It has different influences on this track and has different influences on that track. So I really think they kind of break up the monotony of an atypical metalcore record. So I really enjoy that. This track almost reminds me vaguely of a softer version of Wage War's Young Blood. Ironically enough, another band they're touring with as well. Definitely can note those influences as well. Again, I like the play between Logan and Christian. Again, I keep mentioning it, but I think it's very good to point out. I like that, again, Christian's got some screaming parts in this one, but I feel like this one is more focused on Logan, where you can hear, his emotional fortitude and just, how he is very on point with that. So I really enjoyed that. So, again, that's something that I like to point out on that. And so we'll move on to track number 8, which is Serenity. It's kind of like an interlude. I think most people who have watched my interviews know my thoughts on interludes. I feel like it's a musical sort of palate cleanser where, you listen to the track and it kind of gets you set up for either the next track, or it just gives you an overall arcing like feel to how the album sounds. So I really enjoyed that. So we'll move into track number 9, which is the One Reborn. This one is another one of my favorite tracks. I like this sort of faint guitar in the background. I don't know what the exact terminology is, but I like that it's kind of like in the background and then it kind of like pulls in as the song progresses. Really enjoy that. I think the addition of synth is a nice touch. I like when bands kind of add those sort of electronic elements to their songs. I think that's really awesome. I definitely enjoyed this groove. This one just has this sort of bounce, this move to it. It's definitely one of my favorite tracks of this record. And then the breakdown on this one is definitely one of the best off the record, in my opinion. I think it just hits like a freaking 10-ton truck. If they play this one live, definitely I need to see video of it, because I feel like this one will sound like really awesome live. And just, I can, if you listen to the track, when you listen to the track, I feel like you will definitely have that sort of same feel as I would. Again, it has this sort of just punch to it, and it's really awesome. I think it's structured very well, and I think that's also why it just hits like a truck, because again, it's structured very well. There's clear, parts where they're singing, and I like the trade-off. I feel like this one's very much a Christian screamer focused track. Obviously Logan does have some parts, but I feel like it's very minimalistic in comparison to Christian, which I like. I like the playoff between the two, like I've been mentioning throughout this whole review. I think that is obviously a strong suit of this band. So we'll move on to track number 10, which is the title track, Wrapped in Vines, Covered in Thorns. I like this sort of organy, layered intro. I think it's very cool. I love, again, when bands add that sort of electronic element to their music. I think it kind of just adds this overall ambience to it. This beginning reminds me very much of anything off of either Sepultura or That's the Spirit from Bring Me the Horizon. It feels very much equivalent to that, which is awesome because they're an awesome band as well too. So I definitely could get that connection with that. The guitar riffing on this one is another great one from Michael. I think he's definitely put up some really awesome riffs throughout this entire record, and it was awesome. I think Logan sounded really great in the choruses, and I think Christian is kind of doing awesome in the verses. So again, with the playoff between the two, they know, what song is gonna fit somebody stronger or whatever, or this part sounds stronger with, the layered screams. I think, again, it goes with a lot of saying that, they structured this very well. They thought about it. They thought, oh, well, this will sound really cool here, and that will sound really cool here. So I think that's something to point out. And then I like the instrumental break in the bridge and the sort of ambient overlays of Logan, and then just the build up to the breakdown. I think it was executed very well. And I think it was just something different that they added to their arsenal. I think they really did an awesome job of that one. So definitely enjoyed the title track. So we'll move it on to the last and final track, Grow. I would have to say this one is probably my favorite off the entire record. It's real damn close. I loved a lot of these tracks, as you could tell. I probably named almost all of them as my favorite, and that might change, but I feel like my choices are kind of solidified. But getting back to Grow, I like this sort of layered vocals, harmonies, and stuff like that. This feels very We Came as Roman-esque, especially the first two albums as well, with the addition of like production and the layers and the sort of electronic elements. I think it feels very much like a We Came as Romans album, or track at least. Again, I like the balance between melody and heaviness. I think that they kind of ride that thin line of just having melody and just being straight heavy. I think they've very balanced themselves very well in that regard. And I think again the play between Logan and Christian is really awesome. I think the fact that they're stepbrothers kind of adds to that whole weight that they've been making music together for a long time, and you can definitely tell that they know each other very well. They know how to play it off very well, and I think this is just a great way to end the record. Very anthematic. I think I said that right. I don't know, whatever. But has a very anthem to it. But I really enjoyed how this record came out. I really enjoyed the flow of it. I feel like to me a lot of sort of metalcore records have this I would say not repeat value, but multiple listens and you can't get different things out of it. I think for this record, if I continue to listen to it, I'll pull different things from it, which is awesome. So my pros and cons of this record, I would say that for being pretty much their debut record, I would say I think that they really just amped up their last EP. I think they kind of just took their EP and just went, obviously in a new chapter, a new direction for them, but I also feel like they kind of expounded upon what you know and love about Villain of the Story. So if you haven't checked out the EP, I highly recommend it. Again, it falls very much in the same category as this one, but I think that they experimented a lot. I think on a lot of tracks they kept true to their roots, but I think in some tracks like damn it, Grow, I feel like they definitely did one. Powerless is another one. Dragon Sickness, I would definitely put that in the list as well. And just a lot of other tracks, I feel like they kind of knew what they did well and did it well, but I also feel like they also did a lot of different things and did those well as well. So I think for me, this record is definitely up there in some of my favorites released this year, and it will only be March in like a few days. So really awesome stuff from a lot of different bands. So definitely go check out Villain of the Story if you're going to go see them playing on the West Coast, and I think they're playing some Canadian dates. Definitely go check them out. I highly recommend it. I've seen them live, and I can tell you they put on an awesome show. And go check them out. They are super nice guys. Go say hi to them at their merch table when they play. They seriously are some of the nicest dudes I've ever met. But definitely pre-order their new record, Wrapped in Vines, Covered in Thorns. Sorry, I messed it up, but definitely go pre-order this one. I pre-ordered it without a doubt, so go check this one out. My overall rating for this would be a 9.3 out of 10. I think it's definitely one to go pick up. It feels very homey. It feels very reminiscent of what I know and what I love about, I would consider kind of old school metalcore. Kept very much to its roots, but also at the same time, I think it's an awesome new chapter and an awesome new kind of sound that they're acquiring from different tracks off this record. So I think the overall arching theme of this record is variety. I think they really just did a bunch of different things, and I think they executed them very well. So if you enjoy what we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also make sure to hit that like button as well. And if you enjoy us a lot, definitely go pick up some merch at our merch store. I make sure to leave links in the description for that as well. And then definitely let me know what your thoughts are on the new record on Friday, and also let me know what your favorite tracks are off the record. They can be singles, they could be the new tracks that are coming out very soon. Definitely let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to have a chat with you guys about this record. So definitely go. Oh, and also if you're going to see them on the I Prevail Wage War tour. So definitely go say what's up to them for me and tell them your boy from Audio Addiction sent you. So thank you guys for letting me review your album. It's always a pleasure, guys. So definitely check back with us for the interview that will be going up very soon as well. So without further ado, my name is Brandon, and we hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.